my moves like my ABC.
Public service broadcasting in general, and the BBC in particular, is under threat. With the slipslides of many Western nations, at least economically, to the libertarian right and the ongoing pressures of austerity, many governments are looking into defunding or restructuring their public broadcasters. I know the most about the BBC, so I'll speak from there, but essentially I think that public broadcasters are more important now than they have ever been in the past, and that defunding and privatising them is a huge mistake. The BBC is currently funded in large part by the public purse via a TV licence. This is a fee which everyone pays in order to have a television and to watch it, the proceeds of which go to fund public broadcasting, alongside money earned from licensing its properties, selling shows and show formats internationally, and so on. Due to its public broadcasting and funding, part of the BBC's remit is to produce educational shows and politically neutral news broadcasts. It is publicly funded but independent from government, a model that has been borrowed globally. It presents the news, rather than a news, if you will. I know people on both left and right will be laughing at that suggestion right now, but that only goes to show that it is, at least somewhat, working, even though it's been compromised in recent years. I don't think all broadcasting should be public broadcasting by any means, and I do see the value in private broadcasting. Netflix is doing interesting things, premium cable channels are funding well-accomplished shows, but you have to admit that a lot of material is lowest common denominator horseshit. Game shows, variants on Big Brother, and so on. When it comes to news and current affairs, the influence of private broadcasting is positively toxic. Fox News is terrible, but so are its counterparts on the other side of the political divide. The Daily Mail is awful, but so is The Guardian in its way. The pressure on news media on that model has driven the flight to clickbait journalism because clicks mean money, and private ownership has turned the Rupert Murdoch empire into a giant propaganda machine for one side of the political divide. Public largesse divorces production from populism or political bias, from purely commercial pressure. It creates room for art, room for independent news and current affairs, room for educational shows, room for experimental shows and innovation without career-ruining fear. The public and the private complement each other, each working by its own rules and providing for different but overlapping audiences. In gaming, we've seen the disaster of when attempts at art try to compete on a purely commercial basis, and we also see most of the time that purely commercial games fail as art. There are, of course, exceptions. Sunset tried to sell itself as art, but in the commercial sphere. It was rebuffed, and the following meltdown alienated even more people who might have otherwise had sympathy for them. Had it been paid for by public largesse and private philanthropy and released free without the judgment of the audience that followed, it might well have been acclaimed and better received. The free market isn't the solution to every single problem that humanity faces, and in a world of increasingly biased and shallow reporting, when it comes to news especially, we need a different model, a publicly funded model, because the commercial model has utterly failed. It's too easily compromised. At the moment, you want to see the future? Imagine Gorka screaming accusatory bullshit into a human face forever. We can do better.